Yeah, so as I'm starting, sorry, I'm English, or I speak English. I hope that's okay. So today I'm going to speak to you about Open Hybrid Cloud with RedHat. Apologies for my voice, by the way. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Ben Tyard. I'm a solution architect at RedHat. Lately, I've been focusing a lot more on our local government sector. So we work closely with Rotterdam, for example. So when you think about digital citizen engagement, there's a lot of factors that influence how we actually deliver applications to our citizens. We need to be able to deliver applications faster, more efficiently. There's a lot of regulations and compliance that we need to adhere to. Think about BO compliance, think about NIS 2 coming up, or even Dutch regulations or EU regulations that we need to consider. We also want to make sure that applications are delivered in a transparent and open way to our citizens, so that they've got some trust in what we actually deliver. And we also mentioned data protection and data sovereignty. We generate a lot of data and we deal with sensitive data of our citizens. And we need to make sure that we keep this data safe. Now, all these factors that influence how we do things leads to a lot of different initiatives, as we see. First and foremost is the need to modernize. In this world where citizens are more connected, they want streamlined and efficient applications and processes to be delivered to them. This means that we need to adopt new ways of working. Think of agile approaches, think of new application architectures, think of new patterns for our applications that we need to do. This also means that our employees and our staff need to learn new skills. How do we use these new methods and approaches? At the same time, we're dealing with a lot more data, right? So that opens up opportunities for getting better insights out of this data. AI, machine learning makes our lives easier. But we need a platform that can actually deal and cope with all these different changes. We need to be able to deliver these changes at speed, with speed, stability, and scale, which is quite a tough ask. So I think, why RedHat, right? Firstly, we love open source. And we also feel that open source gives us that innovation and transparency to give people confidence in our applications and solutions. The Dutch government also feels the same way in creating an open source first policy in 2020. But how do we actually deliver our applications? So at RedHat, we work with the upstream first approach. So we foster communities, we help them innovate. But we also understand that applications or companies need to introduce open source software in a safe and controlled way. So to do that, our engineers stabilize various projects that make it to our platforms. We do QA, we make sure it's secure, that you can actually introduce that in an organization safely. Now, this might look familiar to a lot of you, right? So we deal with a big mix of applications in our landscape. This can be traditional applications, think J2EE, for example, or you could be looking at modernizing and creating new cloud-native applications, right? And increasingly, we're also seeing AI and machine learning popping up to see how we can actually make the lives of our citizens and employees more efficient. We also need to make sure that our development teams have got access to tools that they need to be able to innovate fast, adopt new processes, CI/CD, DevOps. Our people, at the end of the day, are our most important asset. Now, looking at infrastructure, most of our customers have an on-premise footprint already. And we don't see that going away in the foreseeable future. You need to operate your data center and control certain data that needs to stay local. But many of you also have started looking at the cloud, or even are already in the cloud. So you're living in a hybrid environment already, right? So how do we deal with this hybrid environment? Well, our vision is open hybrid cloud, which is a recommendation essentially of how to design and architect with this hybrid mix of our applications and landscape in mind. By using standard operating environments of Linux that can run on any cloud provider or hundreds of certified hardware platforms. By using automation to make sure that our application deployments and our configurations are repeatable, giving us the ability to scale across multiple different footprints, on-premise or in the cloud. So I've mentioned that Linux, OpenShift, Ansible, they form the basis of our vision for open hybrid cloud. We get the portability of containers, the flexibility of an application platform that runs anywhere, right, with automation to allow us to scale. Now, when we think of containers and portability, we know that to take Kubernetes and run this in production, there's a lot of choices that you need to make. Think about the underlying operating system. Think about the networking stack. Think about the logging stack. That's a lot of choices that you need to make. So we feel that we've made a selection of CNCF projects to incorporate in our platform. And OpenShift is also a certified Kubernetes distribution, right? So it's not proprietary, it's not something different. Anything that runs on Kubernetes runs on OpenShift. And we've also actually been one of the biggest contributors behind Google to the actual community of Kubernetes. Now, why is this important? We also want to have the flexibility to run your workload on any footprint, be it on your on-premise data centers, on virtualization providers or bare metal, or if you want to move towards public cloud, we've also have managed service offerings that allow you to actually offload that management or the operational side of things towards the RedHat SREs. So you get that flexibility to actually run on every major cloud provider or on-premise. Now, why is this important for me? Is not just that you get a consistent operational experience, think about lifecycle management, think about managing platforms, but you also get a consistent developer experience right through all the different footprints for your platform. So your teams, their skills are transferable, whether you're running on-premise or if you're running in the cloud. Now, we also know that doing DevSecOps is kind of difficult, right? There's a lot of things to consider when we implement security. So we want to make sure that we've got enough capabilities that allow you to secure your DevSecOps pipelines, either during build time, where we do vulnerability analysis, for example, that developers get that feedback to go and fix their applications. But it's more than just a CI/CD pipeline, right? We want to make sure when you actually deploy your application that we can actually have a view of the risk of the application. Are there any misconfigurations that can open up security gaps when you actually define your deployment? And also at runtime, we want to make sure that when I deploy my application, it runs correctly. It's configured correctly to be secure. There's no weird processes running inside my container, for example. So we like to support you throughout that run or build, deploy, and run phase. But this is actually about Haven, right, or Haven. So I think why I've also spoken about Kubernetes is that with the common ground applications, essentially that gives local governments that App Store-like experience. You can actually choose applications that's common among all the local governments, right? So you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but you need to make sure that wherever you deploy this, this can run. And I think this is where the standard actually helps a lot. So I'm happy to say that OpenShift adheres to all the different requirements out of the box, right? So I think there are certain circumstances where you might have to do some additional configuration based on the choices that you made, right? Am I running in public cloud? Am I running on premise? Maybe doing availability zones on public cloud is easier than doing that on premise, right? So you have to take your deployment architecture in mind and also the choices that you make for your various stacks that you are running, right? Because you also need to take into account your own environment. So we've also contributed some examples and automation scripts for the reference architectures. There are examples for on-premise and for all the major cloud providers that you can actually take a look at. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or my colleagues afterwards. Thanks for your time.